Hello, Year 11. I'm just here to give you a little bit of feedback on the Mrs. Porch comprehension. Okay, question one was just a straightforward 5 points we wanted about what was wrong with the household. Don't waste time writing elaborate answers. It's just 5 simple bullet points, but also don't copy out a big chunk. Don't just kind of copy out a past, a relevant section and think that's covering it. You need to split it up a little bit into separate bullet points. So very, very simply, the table is smeared. The children's coats have all been shoved behind the sofa. The toys have been left out with the newspapers. She runs out of food for the evening meal. There's no milk for the baby. Straightforward 5 questions. Don't overcomplicate it. Question two, another 5 marker, but more detailed. We're asked here how the writer shows Henry's character. So that word "how" is fairly crucial. Okay. So I think we need to do two things. We need to say what Henry is shown to be like, and then how the language is suggesting that. So Henry is quite controlling, I would say, and that is shown by the phrase. He said it in a tone that meant there was to be no discussion. The matter was decided. Okay, that phrase there tells us that Henry is not having any kind of discussion with his wife. He's actually saying what he wants. He clearly wants his house to be tidy. The very short sentence, "I'm tired of this mess," shows us that. He has a pleasanter side. The adverb "kindly" is used. Henry said more kindly she could do the worst chores, give you time for the rest. Shows it, he's not completely bad. You could argue that he is a little bit manipulative there. He's trying to persuade her, give her reasons why she might have this cleaner. He likes things done a particular way. The imagery there, she could keep the shiny things polished as Henry liked. That shows, what Henry's expectations are. But I think at the end of that little section where we've got some interesting language choices, Henry says things in a slow and careful voice that meant listen. Those adjectives, slow and careful, suggest that he's quite controlling, quite patronising. So I don't think he's particularly pleasant. He's not somebody that I would enjoy talking to. Question three, a really good question here, 10 marker. What impression do you form of Mrs. Porch here? And there's loads to say here. Okay, I think the first thing is that she's quite efficient, quite she believes in doing things there and then. So she phones Jenny literally 2 days after the advert appears, and she wants to call that afternoon, so she doesn't waste any time. The adverb "precisely" shows that she's very punctual. She arrived precisely. She seems to take charge of things. The little sentence there, it was Mrs. Porch who led the way into the sitting room. Okay, even though she is a guest in the house, she takes control. We're told in a very straightforward way that she's pleasant. That adjective there, she's a pleasant woman. She puts people at ease. Jenny begins to relax. And the other little detail, as they're walking around the house looking around, she's folding clothes up, she's putting things in the basin, rinsing out milk bottles. So she feels this is, she doesn't want to waste time. This is something you should do as you go along. She is, again, always trying to put Jenny at her ease. So when Jenny gets a bit embarrassed, Mrs. Porch says, "Oh, you can't expect them to clear up, can you, at their age? Bless them." So she's aware that Jenny would feel uncomfortable, and she goes out of her way to try and reassure her. When she starts work, she seems almost to have a magical impact on the house. We're given that description, positively exciting for the first couple of weeks, and even the verb choice transforms. She transformed the house within 3 days. It's got that magical quality. The relationship with Jenny and Mrs. Porch is described as nice. Mrs. Porch seems to have initiative. There was never any need to tell Mrs. Porch what to do. And we'll give like a list of things she does. She answered the telephone, posted the letters, she paid the milkman. That listing suggests that this comes naturally to her, and that Mrs. Porch is somebody who can be trusted. So when the doorbell goes, I think it's the milkman, isn't it? Mrs. Porch says, "Don't you bother coming down, dear. I'll settle up with him for you, shall I?" So she appears to be able to be trusted with the money. And any of those comments, you're looking to make between 5, 6, 7 comments about Mrs. Porch, picking out little bits of evidence, commenting on the language, getting a bit of terminology in where appropriate. Word, phrase, the adjective, the adverb, this description, this imagery suggests that, shows us that, tells us that. Okay, so that's your first 3 questions.